They say kids remember the moments that break them. For me, it was a Thursday. My mom had packed her bags while I was at school. I came home to silence, not the comforting kind, but the kind that hums in your bones like something's missing. Her bedroom was empty. Half the living room furniture gone. There was a note on the kitchen table. Honey, this isn't goodbye. I just need to figure things out for me and Greg. I'll call soon. Be good for Dad. Love, Mom. Greg was her new boyfriend. The man who always wore cologne strong enough to trigger migraines and smiled at me like I was a broken lamp someone left in the corner. I waited for that call for 3 weeks. It never came. Dad lasted a bit longer. He tried. He really did. But the rent was high, his hours were low, and his guilt came with a bottle and a spare room at his buddy's house, one that didn't include space for a preteen son. One night, after we'd eaten crackers and canned soup for dinner, he sat me down and told me he had to go somewhere for a while. He promised he'd be back before school started again. That was in June. He never came back. I ended up with Grandpa James. My mother's father, ironically. A widower, retired Navy vet, and the kind of man who never said much, but when he did, it mattered. He didn't cry when he saw me standing on his porch with a duffel bag and tear stains down my cheeks. He just opened the door, took my bag, and said, "Come on in. You hungry?" I lived with him from 12 to 24. He raised me, clothed me, took me to every game and school meeting. He never said a word about my parents except for once, when I asked him why they hadn't reached out. He looked at me, quiet for a long time, then finally said, "Some people choose themselves. Some choose family. That's all." He paid for my community college. Encouraged me to work part-time and save. He taught me how to fix a leaky faucet, cook chili that could win awards, and stand up straight no matter how heavy the world got. When he died, I was 28. I hadn't spoken to either of my parents in over a decade. The funeral was small. Some Navy friends, a few neighbors, and me. I spoke. I could barely get through it without cracking. Afterward, the lawyer pulled me aside and said Grandpa had left everything to me, the house, his truck, and something else. A trust. One he'd been building quietly for 20 years. $1,036,000. I cried for a long time that night. Not because of the money. Because someone had loved me enough to think about my future, even when the people who were supposed to care didn't. But life has a way of digging up ghosts. 2 months after the funeral, I got a letter. A handwritten envelope with shaky cursive and my full name, one only family used. Inside was a folded piece of stationery. No greeting. No return address. Just one sentence. "We heard about the inheritance. We need to talk. It's about your siblings and your father's situation." Siblings? Plural? I didn't even know I had one, let alone more than one. I tossed the letter into a drawer and tried to forget about it. A week later, I got a knock at my door. It was my mother. And 2 kids behind her. She looked older, of course. But not broken. Not lost. She wore makeup and clean clothes. She looked like she had a life. A good one. And now, apparently, I was back on the guest list. I didn't say anything at first. She smiled, awkward. "Hi, honey. Can we come in?" I stared at her for a long time. Then said quietly, "I'm not your honey," and shut the door in her face. She didn't knock again. Not right away. I watched through the peephole as she stood there awkwardly, glancing back at the 2 kids, one maybe 8, the other barely in their teens, both shuffling uncomfortably, like they knew they weren't supposed to be here either. She finally called out, voice tight with manufactured patience. "You can't just slam the door on your mother." I didn't respond. I didn't have to. Because the second I looked into her eyes, I saw it. The real reason she was here. That calculating glint that said, "You have something I want." She didn't show up after my graduation. Not when I was hospitalized for appendicitis at 19. Not for Grandpa James' funeral. But now that the old man's obituary mentioned a sizable trust and local real estate. Now she remembers me. I opened the door just enough to say what you need to say. Then leave. She smiled like we were old friends picking up where we left off. This is Emma and Caleb, she said, nudging the kids forward. They're your brother and sister. I looked at them. Emma couldn't meet my eyes. Caleb clung to her jacket sleeve like he was afraid I might bite. Step-siblings, I corrected coldly. At best. She had the audacity to sigh, like I was the difficult one. I know I wasn't around, she started, like she was talking about a missed dinner. But things were complicated. After the divorce, Greg and I had to start over. We didn't have a lot. You had enough to vanish, I said flatly. No calls. No birthdays. Not a single Christmas card. I was going to reach out. I just didn't know how. She offered. You had a phone. An address. Email. Social media. Pigeons. Pick a method. She swallowed. Can we please come inside? It's cold out here. No. That single word stunned her more than the door slam. She blinked, like it short-circuited her plan. Look, she said, stepping closer, lowering her voice. This isn't just about the past. I know about your grandfather's estate. I know he left you something significant. And I hate to even bring it up, but we need help. Your father, he's sick. He has debts. And the kids, Emma and Caleb, they need a better future. There it was. The real pitch. I almost laughed. The way she said, we. As if that included me. As if we were a team. I think you're confusing love with leverage, I said slowly. This money doesn't belong to you. It's not a family pot. Grandpa left it to me because he raised me. Not you. Not Dad. Not these two kids you didn't even think to tell me about until you needed a checkbook. Emma flinched. Caleb looked like he wanted to disappear. For a split second, I felt guilty. But then I remembered the last time I saw my mother. I was sitting on the porch steps of our crumbling duplex, legs too short to touch the ground, eating dry cereal out of a mug. Dad was asleep inside, a shiftless heap of snores and beer breath. I was 10. She pulled up in her red Toyota, music blaring, her new boyfriend in the passenger seat. She didn't look at me. Didn't even wave. She dropped off a plastic bag of my clothes she'd taken, by accident, and sped off. That was the last time I saw her, until today. I'm sorry, she said quietly now, but we're desperate. Your father might lose the house. I thought you two weren't speaking? I asked. Or was that just during the years I needed a parent? That hit. I saw it in her face. The shame, or maybe just the inconvenience of being caught in a lie. This isn't about you, she said finally, frustrated. It's about your siblings. They don't deserve to suffer because of mistakes we made. Tell that to the 11-year-old boy who lived off canned ravioli for 2 weeks because no one remembered to come home. She looked away. I'm not a villain, she whispered. No, I said, stepping back inside. You're worse. You're a mother who abandoned her kid, and only remembered him when he became useful. I closed the door again. Didn't slam it this time. Didn't need to. Because I knew this wasn't over. People like her don't disappear quietly. Especially not when they smell money. I didn't answer the first time the call came in. Or the second. But by the third ring, curiosity got the better of me. I let it connect and didn't say anything. Just listened. A breath. Then a voice, gravelly cautious. Hey, kid. It's me. Kid. As if we were still tethered by some invisible father-son bond that hadn't been sliced and torched 15 years ago. I didn't respond. He took that as a cue to continue. I know I don't have the right to call. I know I messed up. But your mom said she talked to you, and I just wanted to say, look, I'm sorry. I should have been there. For everything. I waited. Still nothing from me. He sighed. Things are rough right now. I lost a job at the auto shop. Health hasn't been great either. Back problems, mostly. And the mortgage, well, you know how it is. Oh, I knew how it was. I'd lived on a mattress in Grandpa's guest room while my father figured things out. In another city. I knew how it was when the power got cut off and Grandpa pawned his war medals to cover groceries. But my father hadn't called then. Hadn't called when I graduated high school. Not when I published my first freelance article. Not when I landed my job. Not when Grandpa died. But he was calling now. Because now, I was rich. Cut to the chase, I said flatly. What do you want? He hesitated. Just to talk. You've had 15 years to talk. You want money? A pause. That was all the confirmation I needed. I wouldn't ask if I wasn't desperate. I'm not proud of this, okay. But I got nothing left. I'm behind on everything. And your siblings? Stop, I interrupted. They're not my siblings. I don't know them. I didn't grow up with them. They're strangers. You're strangers. Don't say that, man. Blood is blood. I laughed. Couldn't help it. A dry, bitter laugh that scraped my throat on the way out. You abandoned your blood, I said. And now you want to cash in on a kid you left behind like a broken TV. Listen, he said, his voice tightening. I made mistakes. But I still love you. I still think about you. Every damn day. If that were true, I replied, I wouldn't be hearing from you for the first time through a blocked number asking for a bailout. Then I hung up. Didn't wait for a response. I sat in silence for a long time after that. The kind of silence that buzzes. I thought I'd feel powerful, maybe even vindicated. But all I felt was hollow. Until the text started. From people I hadn't spoken to in years. Aunts. Cousins. Even a few of Grandpa's old neighbors. Hey, I heard you're doing really well now. Proud of you. It's been a while, maybe we can grab coffee? Your mom told me what's going on. I think you should consider helping them out. Their family. The phrase repeated over and over again, their family. But where was that sentiment when I was 13, stealing cafeteria fruit to get through weekends? Where were these people when Grandpa got sick and I had to hold his hand through hospice alone? Now they wanted to come back. One by one. Like moths to a flame made of dollar signs. The final straw was the post. A Facebook post from my cousin Lorraine. One of the few relatives I used to like. A picture of my half-siblings, Emma and Caleb, with the caption, Some kids don't deserve the pain adults cause. Praying for these two as they face uncertainty because of someone else's greed. The comments were worse. Hope that brother of theirs grows a conscience. Money really changes people. Disgusting. Family should come first. They didn't tag me, but it didn't matter. The implication was clear. I was the villain in a story I didn't even write. So I did what I always do when my hands are shaking and my chest burns with old fire. I pulled out the file folder Grandpa left me. The one labeled, in case they ever come back. Inside were copies of emails. Letters. Even a handwritten will. But the page I clutched now was the one Grandpa had signed and dated 6 years ago. A declaration. Notarized. I, James Everett Monroe, hereby state my intention that any inheritance, trust, or asset left to my grandson, Daniel Monroe, is to be used solely at his discretion. His parents, Raymond and Dana Monroe, are to have no access to any funds, nor should they request financial assistance under the guise of family obligation. They have forfeited that right. At the bottom, Grandpa had written a note in shaky pen. You don't owe them anything. I raised you. I saw who you became. Be proud. And protect what you've earned. I read it twice. Then I opened my laptop. And started drafting a very public post. It started with a caption. I wasn't going to say anything. But since my name's already being dragged through mud, here's the truth. You want to talk about family? Let's talk. Then I posted it. A 2,300-word essay. With photos. Screenshots. Copies of Grandpa's will. Excerpts from his handwritten notes. I attached a scanned image of the notarized letter stating my parents were not entitled to a single cent. I ended the post like this. They left me when I was a child. Not once, twice. My father abandoned me. My mother chose a new family and never looked back. The man who raised me wasn't them, it was my grandfather. And he made sure I'd never have to rely on people who only show up when it's convenient. They're not entitled to my life. Or my money. Or my silence. Then I logged off. I knew it would explode. I just didn't know how fast. When I checked the post the next morning, it had 300 comments, 1,000 shares, and my inbox looked like a war zone. There were the expected reactions, sympathy from people I hadn't heard from in years. Rage from the usual suspects. But then came the switch. Lorraine, the cousin who shaded me with her "some kids suffer" post, publicly apologized. I had no idea what you went through, Daniel. I'm sorry for assuming. This changes everything. Then another cousin messaged me, saying, "You're braver than all of us. We knew things were messed up. We just didn't want to rock the boat." The boat was rocking now. It was halfway sunk. I didn't hear from my mom for 2 days. Then she called. Left a voicemail drenched in faux sadness. "Danny, I didn't know you were hurting so much. I thought we could fix this. But now, I just feel like you've declared war on your family." War? No. I wasn't the one who started this war. I just stopped pretending we were allies. Then came my father. He didn't call. He showed up. I was walking home from the corner coffee shop when I saw him leaning against the hood of a rusted-out Chevy across from my building. He looked smaller than I remembered. Thinner. His hair was more gray than brown now, and the lines on his face weren't from smiling. He didn't wave. Just stood up when I got closer. "We need to talk." I crossed my arms. "No, we don't." "You really put it all out there, huh?" he said. "Your grandpa always was a dramatic bastard." I laughed. "You mean the man who raised your son when you vanished? That bastard?" He looked away. "You know what this is doing to us?" "No," I said. "But I know what you did to me. And I think that matters more." He stepped forward. "I'm still your father. And I'm still the kid you left behind." We stared at each other. Two strangers pretending to share DNA. He tried again. "You don't have to give us money. Just maybe help with the kids. Emma and Caleb didn't do anything wrong. Neither did I." I snapped. "But no one helped me." His jaw clenched. "You're really going to be this cold? You think this is cold?" I said. "This is warm compared to what it felt like growing up without you. Without either of you." That's when he snapped. "You're not better than us, Daniel. You just got lucky. Don't let that money turn you into someone you're not." I leaned in. Calm. Sharp. "I didn't get lucky. I got left behind. Then I got loved by someone who didn't owe me a damn thing. And you know what? That love turned into something you'll never understand: legacy." He looked like he wanted to punch something. Maybe me. But he didn't. He just muttered, "You'll regret this." I smiled. "Funny. That's exactly what Grandpa said you'd say." Then I walked away. That night, my apartment buzzer rang around 11 p.m. I didn't answer. I watched from the window as my mom stood outside, holding a folder. She stayed for 30 minutes. Then she left it by the door and walked away. I didn't open it until the next morning. Inside were old pictures of me. Some drawings I'd made as a kid. A few progress reports from elementary school. A Mother's Day card I wrote when I was 7. And a note. "You don't have to forgive us. But don't erase us completely." It was the first thing that almost made me cry. Almost. But not quite. Because taped to the back of the folder was a typed printout. Estimated trust remainder, $947,000. Beneficiary, Daniel J. Monroe. She hadn't just come to guilt me. She'd come to negotiate. It arrived in a pink envelope with glitter tape and a crooked sticker of a unicorn. No return address. No legal threat. No dramatic handwriting. Just, to Daniel. I opened it half expecting another guilt trap, something dictated by my mother for emotional effect. But it wasn't. It was written in purple crayon. "Hi Daniel. I'm Emma. Mommy says you're my big brother. I didn't know I had a big brother. That's cool. I don't know why everyone is fighting. I just hope one day we can have ice cream or pizza together. I'm sorry they were mean to you. Love. Emma," smiley face. There was a stick figure drawing of us holding hands. I was taller. She gave me a cape. I stared at the letter for a long time. I wasn't angry. I wasn't sad. I was just tired. Tired of feeling like the villain in someone else's fairy tale. I tucked the letter into my desk drawer and told myself it didn't change anything. But the truth is, it did. Not in a way that made me forgive, but in a way that reminded me I wasn't fighting children. I was fighting the adults who used them like poker chips. The very next day, I got a call from Amanda, Grandpa's old attorney. "You need to come in," she said. "We've received a legal notice. Your mother and father are attempting to petition the court to challenge the trust." "On what grounds?" I asked, already clenching my jaw. She sighed. "They're claiming undue influence. That your grandfather was mentally compromised. That you coerced him into cutting them out." I actually laughed. I was 22. I was working part-time at a hardware store and going to night classes. "You think I coerced a retired Navy vet into anything?" "They're desperate," Amanda said simply. "And when people are desperate, they try everything." That night, I found a fake Reddit thread. Title: "Would you help your broke parents if you inherited $1 million?" It was full of strangers accusing me of being selfish, cold, ungrateful. Some even suggested Grandpa was abusive for cutting his own daughter out. It didn't take long to figure out who posted it. My dad had used his Reddit handle before to argue about car parts. Same spelling. Same grammar. Same weird obsession with calling people champ. I commented once. "Imagine abandoning your child for over a decade and then suing him for the money someone else left him. Bold move, champ." He deleted the post within an hour. But screenshots live forever. I started getting messages from people who recognized my story, even a few from lawyers who had handled similar family estate cases. One of them offered to help. Pro bono. "I had a dad just like yours," he said. "You deserve peace." I accepted. The next morning, Amanda filed a countersuit. But the same morning, something else happened. I walked out of my apartment to find my car windshield cracked. Stuffed beneath the wiper was a note written in red marker. "Rich boy. You owe your family." The cameras in my building caught nothing. Just a blurry figure walking away with a hoodie up. But I had a feeling. Then came the email. From an address I didn't recognize. Subject line: "You think this ends with money?" The body of the email was just a single sentence. "You should have stayed poor. You were easier to control that way." That's when I knew. This wasn't about family anymore. It was war. And my silence was the battlefield they thought they owned. But they forgot who taught me how to fight. Grandpa didn't just raise me to be independent. He raised me to end things when they went too far. So I picked up the phone, called Amanda, and said 4 words. "Let's burn it down." Amanda wasted no time. The morning after our call, she filed a motion to dismiss the petition against the trust with a supplemental filing, a 60-page dossier of medical records, video testimony, and notarized witness statements from Grandpa's friends, doctor, and therapist, all confirming his mental clarity during the time he created the trust. Included were scans of letters Grandpa had written to each lawyer he'd consulted. All of them outlined the same decision. "I leave nothing to my daughter and son-in-law. I've raised their son as my own. If they ever ask why, tell them this: I leave what I love to the ones who never left." It was poetic. It was devastating. And it was legally airtight. But that didn't stop the retaliation. A week later, I walked into work and found my boss waiting by my desk. "You've been mentioned in a couple of, let's call them concerned emails." My stomach dropped. He handed me a printout. One anonymous tip accused me of using company funds to fund a lavish personal lifestyle. Another claimed I was under investigation for elder abuse. False, obviously. But damaging enough that our HR rep had to sit me down. Just to document it. I told them the truth, gave them Amanda's card. They believed me. They were kind. But I could see it, that little flicker of doubt, the seed planted. That night, I checked my personal email. 3 new spam accounts had submitted fake, whistleblower, tips to my company's anonymous feedback portal. One of them used my mom's old email handle, the one she used to send school field trip permission slips. They were trying to get me fired. I could have panicked. Instead, I got strategic. I called Amanda again. Is it time? I asked. It's time, she said. We submitted a cease and desist to both parents. One to their shared family lawyer. Another to the private P.O. box address listed in their petition. Amanda made it crystal clear. Any further harassment, digital or physical, would trigger a full defamation and malicious interference suit. But we didn't stop there. We contacted 2 local newspapers, the kind that still cared about hometown scandals and juicy inheritance drama. Amanda sent them a press statement, crafted to be dry and factual but loaded with enough subtext to explode. They ran it. Headline: Veteran's estate contested by estranged family after grandson inherits full trust. Photos included Grandpa in uniform, my high school graduation, and a snapshot of me helping Grandpa install a flagpole. They didn't look good in the story. At all. Suddenly, I wasn't the villain. I was the underdog. And my inbox? Flooded again, but this time with support. Veterans groups sent messages of solidarity. Strangers told me they admired my strength. One guy offered to set up a GoFundMe, just in case they come after your soul next. But the moment that hit hardest? A second letter from Emma. Same glitter tape. Same unicorn stickers. But this time, typed. Hi Daniel. I saw the picture of you and Grandpa in the newspaper. I didn't know he raised you. That's cool. Mommy is mad about it, but Caleb said you look nice. If you ever want to talk to me, here's my email. emma.smiles.9@mail.com. I'm not allowed to have real Instagram. Love. Emma. P.S. I drew us a new picture. Grandpa is there too. I stared at the drawing. She gave me a red cape again. She gave Grandpa a medal. She drew herself in between us, holding both our hands. I sat there, quiet for a long time. Because that picture? That picture was everything they didn't understand. They saw money. But Emma? She saw family. Real family. And it scared me how much I wanted to respond. How much I wanted to protect her, from them, from the lies, from being used as the next pawn in their game. But before I could even think about what to say, my phone buzzed again. Blocked number. A voicemail came through almost immediately. It was my father. His voice quiet. Dangerous. You crossed the line, son. You think you're bulletproof. You're not. You made us look weak. You think you're safe behind lawyers and papers? You're not. And I promise you, you're going to wish you just paid us what we asked for. Click. I sat there in the dark, clutching Emma's drawing in one hand and dialing my lawyer with the other. Amanda wasted no time drafting a formal response to my father's threat. We filed a police report. Then a petition for a protective order. The voicemail, with its subtle menace, did more than unsettle me, it gave us leverage. A detective called 2 days later, asking if I felt unsafe. I told him the truth, not unsafe, just done. Done with fear. Done with guilt. Done with being the emotional landfill for 2 people who'd treat love like a bargaining chip. I'd spent too much of my life wondering when they'd change. I realized now, they wouldn't. That same day, I got a call from a man named Owen Daniels. He introduced himself as Grandpa's former best friend. Retired Navy chief. James and I used to play chess every Sunday. He ever teach you? No, I said. He taught me how to fix a water heater blindfolded, but not chess. Owen laughed. Figures. He was better at wrenches than pawns. Anyway, I've got something for you. He told me Grandpa had left him a box, one he was only supposed to deliver if things got real bad. And according to Owen, they were bad enough. I met him at a local diner. He slid a weathered box across the table like it held state secrets. Inside, a small journal, a USB drive, and a folded letter with my name written in Grandpa's jagged handwriting. The letter read, "If you're reading this, they're back. And I'm guessing it's about money. You don't owe them anything, son. But if you ever start to feel like the bad guy, remember this. I was there when they didn't show up. I watched your face fall every birthday they missed. I saw how you learned to stop asking why. And I swore I'd make sure they never got to take from you again. If you ever need to remind the world who raised you, show them this. Love you, kid. Grandpa. The USB had video. I watched it that night. It was Grandpa sitting on the back porch, a beer in hand, the wind rustling the American flag behind him. He looked right at the camera. Daniel, he said, you're gonna have people crawl out of the woodwork when they hear about what I left you. Don't let their noise drown out your truth. He raised his beer. You earned this. You survived them. That's worth more than $1 million if you asked me. Then he saluted. Not the stiff, formal military one. Just a small, proud gesture, from a man who never said, I love you, unless it was carved into something permanent. I cried. Really cried. Not out of grief, or fear, or anger. Out of relief. That someone, the someone, saw me, even when no one else did. And suddenly, I knew what I needed to do. The next morning, I uploaded the video. Just like that. No commentary. No post. Just the title. My grandpa raised me. My parents just remembered I exist. It blew up in hours. Tens of thousands of views. Comments flooded in. You can see the pride in his eyes. This made me cry. My dad was like your grandpa. This guy's family is about to get ratioed into the next dimension. Even news outlets picked it up. Local channels started calling. A podcast reached out asking for an interview. But it wasn't about going viral. It was about reclaiming the narrative, for me, for Grandpa, for every kid who ever got left behind. That night, I opened my email and finally typed a reply to Emma. Hi Emma. Thank you for your letters. You're very sweet. I don't know what's going to happen next, but I want you to know something. If you ever need someone to talk to, I'm here. You didn't do anything wrong. And you're not part of this mess. You're just a kid. A good one. You gave me a cape in your picture. But honestly, you're the one being brave. I clicked send and exhaled. But the moment didn't last long. Amanda called the next morning. There's one more thing, she said. Your parents filed a last-ditch claim. Emergency motion. They want access to the trust under a family hardship clause. We have a hearing in 10 days. I sat there, staring at the calendar. Then I opened Grandpa's journal. On the last page, he'd scribbled something in block letters. If they take you to court, bring everything. I smiled. Time to finish this, I said. The courthouse smelled like cheap polish and nerves. Amanda was calm, as always. Her heels clicked like war drums on the tile as we passed my mother and father sitting on the opposite bench, pretending they weren't whispering last-minute strategies. They brought a lawyer who looked like he charged extra for fake sympathy. His opening statement was smooth. Your Honor, my clients seek not to undermine the trust, but to access it in a time of severe family hardship. They believe Mr. Monroe's inheritance, while earned through close familial ties, does not negate their status as immediate family. Status. As if status made someone a parent. Amanda stood. Your Honor, she said, voice level, sharp, and clear. We are here today because these two individuals, who abandoned their son over a decade ago, believe they're entitled to the fortune left by the man who actually raised him. This isn't about hardship. This is about opportunism. And we're going to prove it. And we did. She presented every notarized statement Grandpa ever wrote. Played video clips of him discussing the trust, his intention to protect me, and even one where he says, laughing, if Dana or Ray ever come sniffing around, tell them to get lost. The courtroom chuckled. Then I was called to the stand. I didn't want to speak. Not at first. But Amanda had insisted. So I looked at the judge and said the simplest version of the truth. I was 11 when they left. No calls. No visits. Just silence. Everything I am, I owe to my grandfather. They are not my family. They're people I used to be related to. I didn't steal from them. I survived them. The judge didn't smile. But I saw her eyes soften. The parents' lawyer tried to poke holes. Claimed Grandpa manipulated me. That I was isolated from my real family. Amanda shut that down hard. James Monroe enrolled his grandson in school, covered his health care, signed his field trip waivers, and cooked him dinner every night for 12 years. The only isolation Daniel experienced was from the people sitting across this room. Then came the witnesses. Owen, my old high school teacher, even a nurse from Grandpa's hospice care. One by one, they painted a picture the other side couldn't erase. By the end of the hearing, my father looked like he'd aged 10 years. My mother was pale, her hands clenched in her lap like she was physically holding back tears, or rage, or both. The judge returned after a recess and didn't waste words. The court finds that the petitioners have no legal claim or moral standing to access the trust of James Everett Monroe. The trust remains solely under the control and discretion of the beneficiary, Daniel Monroe. Petition denied. Gavel down. It was over. They stood up, not looking at me. Not speaking. Just walking out, shoulders tight with the weight of losing, not just money, but the story they told themselves for years. That I'd somehow be waiting. Willing. Weak. They were wrong. Outside the courthouse, Amanda looked at me. You okay? I think I am, I said. And for the first time in years, I meant it. In the weeks that followed, things quieted down. The online drama faded. The relatives who'd taken sides went silent, or switched them. I didn't care either way. I wasn't trying to win hearts anymore. Just hold on to mine. And then one afternoon, I got a package. No name. No return address. Inside was a drawing. 3 stick figures. Me. Grandpa. Emma. We were eating ice cream. And this time, I didn't cry. I smiled. Just one line written in neat kid handwriting at the bottom. I still think you're my big brother. I framed it. Put it next to Grandpa's photo on the mantel. Maybe I'll reach out to her one day, when she's old enough to understand that love isn't measured in blood or broken promises. It's measured in presence. In staying. Grandpa taught me that. And now I live by it. I don't know what the future holds. But I know one thing for sure. They abandoned me when I had nothing. They came back when I had everything. But I gave them nothing. Because everything I have came from the one person who never asked for anything in return. Grandpa.